Good morning and welcome everyone. I trust you can hear me okay. Please give us a thumbs up if you can hear us. Brilliant, thank you. I'm delighted to welcome you to In Conversation with John Chapman, Small Business Commissioner today. We really appreciate John's time and we really appreciate the support that he provides not only tourism businesses but small business across the state. This session will be recorded today. We've been made available afterwards, as we do with all of our other In Conversation sessions. I'd ask that you please keep your microphones on mute. Feel free to use the chat function as always and provide comments and questions. I will then throw to a number of people that have previously submitted a question, and then I'll provide an opportunity for people to also ask questions from the floor if we have time at the end of the session. For those of you that I don't know, my name's Sean De Bruin and I'm the CEO of TIC SA. I think these In Conversations have been fantastically valuable, helping business navigate the uncertain times that we're in. And obviously, you know, we've seen some stuff in the last 24 hours. That is, if you're a small business person in Victoria at the moment, it would be extremely concerning. So we are very fortunate here in South Australia and in Australia. And but having said that, obviously times are extremely challenging, as we know. So without any more from me, I'd now like to welcome John, who's sitting to my right, John Chapman, Small Business Commissioner, and John will run through a presentation and then we'll start taking some questions.
Thanks, Sean. Presentation. Can we get to full screen? There we go. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to give you a bit of an update in terms of the work that we're currently doing, but also in terms of the role of our office, which is located at 99 Gawler Place, which you can see there on your screen. My Minister is the Attorney General Deputy Premier, Vicky Chapman, and we have regular meetings on a whole range of issues. You can see my team there that was pre-COVID, before we had self-distancing in place. So our team is ready and able to help. I would say at the moment we are still operating remotely. All of our staff, bar a couple, have been working remotely. We are starting the process of bringing them back into the workplace. Unfortunately, that has created some difficulties with our phones and the ability to triage the phones, so all inquiries unfortunately need to be online, but we will respond to you very quickly. In terms of our role, one of our key components is alternative dispute resolution. So we work with parties to try and work through a whole range of disputes. Just looking at the figures last year and last financial year, and it was over 330 that went into a formal case mode, and we dealt with 3,833 inquiries during the year. Both numbers are substantially up on previous years as a result of COVID and the impacts that's had on small business. My role is created under the Small Business Commissioner Act. It's an independent statutory officer. While I'm funded by the government, I am able to express my own point of view and conduct my business as I see fit to benefit small business. I'm also responsible for the Retail Commercial Leases Act, and I'll talk about some of those issues a little shortly. The new one on the screen, 0.3, the COVID-19 Emergency Response Act. Again, I'll talk about that more shortly, but that's one that covers a whole range of activities of government, but in particular, there's a section in there that relates to commercial leasing and regulations which attach to that, which give me responsibilities and powers in certain areas. Building industry, I have the Building Industry Security Payment Act, or as we know it, the SOPA, which is an adjudication process that I'm responsible for. There's some changes currently sitting with the government for consideration at the moment, post a national review, and we'll wait on that in due course. I'm also responsible for farm debt mediation, which was an initiative of the Marshall government, and that was put in place very quickly after the government was elected in March 18. We had that in place in 6 months, and we are dealing with cases as we go. In terms of the government, it's required to pay its debts within 30 days. If it doesn't, there's legislation that actually now provides that the government must pay interest for any amounts outstanding after 30 days unless the amounts are in dispute, and provided the interest is over $10 and the invoice is under $1 million, which generally covers most small businesses. I'm also responsible for sorting out disputes with mobile food vendors and bricks and mortar businesses, and indeed local government. That sits under the Local Government Act. Some responsibilities to provide advice to the government in terms of work health and safety. And in the dispute resolution space, I've got 6 codes which sit under the Fair Trading Act, covering farming, news agency, motor vehicle, building and construction, franchising, etc. So, and there's also one covering farming and mining, so miners seeking access to farmland. We can activate the code, which gives me powers to get parties to the table and undertake alternative dispute resolution and a few other things. Generally, the disputes are very wide and broad. No 2 disputes are the same. We look at leasing matters. We have finance issues from time to time with the banks, telecommunications, transport companies, quality of goods provided, franchising, and often services contracts and late or non-payment for goods or services. We're not a debt collection agency, but if there's a dispute over why someone hasn't paid something, and that may be to do with quality, we will try and get the parties together and, if necessary, provide mediation. In this COVID-19 world, the government responded very quickly in terms of issues to do with retail and commercial leases. Unfortunately, we had to have a couple of goes at getting the COVID Act dealing with leasing and regulations put into place. And the first reason for that was that while we had legislation going through the Parliament in April, the federal government and National Cabinet released a national code on leasing, which had some rather interesting wording that forced us to go back rethink and amendments, both of which went through the Parliament very quickly. And I should not only the government, but everyone in the Parliament recognised there are a whole range of issues that small business were dealing with, and we needed to be able to help them as quickly as we could. The current Act and the regulations dealing with leasing matters provide what I term a very clear path to dispute resolution. The regulations require parties to a lease to negotiate in good faith. So to see if they can come to a resolution themselves. If that's not possible, then it can be referred to our office and we can mediate an outcome. We're currently sitting on, checked this morning, 83 cases since this part of the Act came into play in mid-May. Of those, 19 have settled successfully. We've got a number of others where agreement has been reached by the parties without going to mediation. Sometimes just contact from our office has been enough to trigger discussions that previously didn't happen. If we can't get to agreement by mediation, and we've had one of those, I issue what's known as a mediation certificate, and the parties are then free, one or both, to take the matter off to the magistrate's court. In terms of other areas that we've been dealing with, one of the big impacts for small business on an ongoing basis, it's certainly dominated a lot of my time over the past 3 to 4 years, has been where councils and government undertake roadworks and the impacts that has on businesses. We've certainly been involved, and I've been quite vocal in this area, and it's great to see that a lot of the councils now are really rethinking on how they do this and thinking about the small businesses who are undoubtedly affected by the changes. And obviously, King William Road down in Hyde Park, the Unley Council consulted at length with the businesses there. Yes, it was a difficult process. Yes, the work needed to be done, but we saw a whole new dimension in terms of the engagement, which previously things would happen, people would shrug their shoulders and say, that's it. Wherever possible, the council were able to address the issues. King William Street there in the city, you see from the shot from the Ferris wheel, we had some issues there with businesses, and again, we were able to work with the Department of Planning, Transport and Infrastructure to deal with those quite effectively. We've also put a guide out, which is available. It's on our website, but also available to councils, and indeed it's been circulated within the government on what we regard as best practice on how to do these projects, and that has been accepted quite well. We work closely with small business and local government. We have a small business friendly council program, and the charter there that you see, the broad parameters, we ask councils to sign up. We've got 33, and I think there's another couple in the wings at the moment. So we're almost halfway, and the councils that are engaged in that join us once a year for a workshop where we look at best practice, what people are doing. This year's workshop, we're already planning for October. Hopefully we'll be able to have face-to-face now, potentially socially distanced or personal distance in place, but it's a good forum for people to exchange ideas on what they do and how they do it to invigorate their local communities and their main streets, which are so essential. I do a fair amount of travel around the state to keep in contact with businesses and also key stakeholders. You see in the slide there, the Premier dropped into our display up there at the Riverland Field Days, and the other slide there with Peter Treloar and Adrian Pedrick, that was over at the Eyre Peninsula Field Days. So I've travelled quite extensively this year to Kangaroo Island, backwards and forwards, post the bushfires and dealing with issues there, and was recently there with Minister Pisoni, who's also been a regular visitor to the island. He's the minister responsible for small business in the government, and in fact I'm heading off to Port Augusta and Port Pirie tomorrow to accompany him on some visits and meeting businesses there. We've been working with the businesses. We've put a number of things in place with the department, and one was the small business grants for the bushfires, and the department moved very quickly on that, and we also assisted the department in putting some financial counsellors in place in both the Adelaide Hills and on KI to help businesses in that area. I advocate for small business. There's a few examples of different issues I've been talking about. Great to see my national counterpart, Kate Carnell, on the 7:30 report last night, talking about the issue of late payments and the difficulties that causes small business. We've got a bit of momentum building up. We meet as commissioners on a regular basis, and we'll be having our next meeting next week. And this one, I'm sure, remains on top of the list. Obviously, there are issues that come up at a state level from time to time, and you might have seen in today's advertiser, I've said a few words about the unfairness of the state government's small business grant program and some of the issues that have come to my attention that the government won't budge on at this stage, but we will keep advocating. And finally, it does say our toll-free numbers. I'll just ask you avoid those at the moment, just email us and we will respond to you with any questions that you have and hopefully point you in the right direction. Thanks, Sean.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, John. And yeah, I've read with interest your comments this morning in the paper, and you highlighted tourism as one of the sectors that is coming to your office.
Yeah.
Before I go to the people who have sent some questions in, are you able to give us any case study examples without disclosing business details in terms of the way in which you might have interacted with tourism businesses around some of the services that you provide, John?
I think particularly on Kangaroo Island, there was that was an example of the fires just scared everyone off, and businesses' bookings were just cancelled. And I suppose often the advocacy is at a broader level where we, I'll advocate to the government. There's a few things that need to be done. Grant programs were put in place, and I'd have to say, at a state level, I believe they've been very well done. Yes, there are criticisms from time to time, but on the whole, the energy that goes into putting these programs into place, where people are working day and night to get them put in place, is significant. KI, there were some issues that were coming up in terms of people having difficulty navigating the different programs, and we pulled together a session which we ran in Kingscote, Pandana, where I brought 3 key players involved to the island, and we had the sessions. Ironically, at Kingscote at the hotel, everything was going well, and I could hear this sort of buzz in the background, not paying much attention, but it was actually the fire alarm. And Mary Lou Corcoran, who's the manager over there, rushed into the room with her helmet on and said, "You'll all have to evacuate. There's a fire alarm's gone off," and this was only a few months after the fire, so there was a heightened tension. And as we went outside, I'm sort of wandering right off the pace here, the local CFS pulled up. They were very promptly on the scene, and it was quite telling to see the fire engine that they had was quite melted in a few places. So, these things often linger from time to time. I'm pleased to say it wasn't a fire, it was steam. It burst out of one of the pipes and set off the alarm. So it was real, it was raw. There are issues that come to us, not so much in the tourism space, they're more general. I think at the moment I'm particularly concerned about your industry and the difficulties that we just don't seem to be able to take a trick at the moment that we've had. Obviously bushfires, and that's had impacts. As much internationally, people suddenly stop coming to Australia, and that flows on to non-bushfire affected businesses. We had the Book Them Out campaign, which was fantastic, and then COVID came along, and it just has absolutely killed things. When some businesses have come to me to talk about their issues, when they tell me about their income levels, April, May and June have been just disastrous. I've never seen anything like it. And to see the Victorian situation emerge again with the border closures, I'm just lost for words. I think it's just a terrible situation for the industry, but I'm probably not telling you anything you don't already know.
Thanks, John. So we've got 4 questions, so I'll just throw to these people first. And I'm not quite sure exactly who's online, but Marilyn Turner, Murray Hotel, I believe you're there. Please come off mute and ask your question to John.
Okay, can you hear me? You there?
Is your volume up, Sean?
Can you hear anything? We're just having a few issues. Should be up. Oh, there we go. Okay, can we
You're right.
Murray Hotel? Sorry.
Yes, Marilyn Turner here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, good on you, Marilyn.
Okay. first, I wanted to thank TIXA for the support in extending JobKeeper to March next year. Desperately hoping that that goes through. That will greatly help us in Maree. Obviously, we're in an area where our tourist season is very seasonal, ends in October, which is probably going to be around the end of, or perhaps getting back to some sort of normality, and we will have lost our whole tourist season. So negotiating with our landlord, and I'm sure we'll be making an appointment to come and see your commissioner and try and sort something out there. He has tried to double our rent. Yeah, it's just not negotiating at all. So we're going through a lawyer at the moment, but not doing terribly well there.
Look, thanks for that, Marilyn. Sean kindly provided me with the information that you'd sent through. Please don't hesitate to contact our office and indeed or your lawyer, so we can discuss how we might be able to link in, you know, either through mediation or walk through the process that's already there, to see if we can get a better result, because that sounds pretty ordinary at the moment if someone's looking to double the rent. Although I suppose double nothing's still nothing at the moment if it's based on your turnover.
Yeah. Well,
I don't mean to be facetious, but yeah,
yeah. Our we're down 93% in May and June. I know we've got school holidays at the moment. We might get a small burst, but what we're finding in the far north is an increase in caravanners and sort of the grey nomads who are they're not particularly spending a lot of money, and I think are cautious sort of going into places but wanting to travel. But of course for us, you know, we've just missed the Big Red Bash, which was our major event for the year, and our Camel Cup. But most of our visitors come from Victoria and New South Wales, so hitting us big time.
Hopefully New South Wales will remain open. Victoria I can't see opening for some time, obviously.
Thanks, Marilyn.
Thank you. Thank you.
Michelle Bain, I'm not sure if you're there or not. I don't think you are. You did send through a question. If you're there and we just can't see you, please come off mute. Okay, I'll just move on.
I can respond to that question.
Yeah, please, John. Go.
There was an article in the advertisement. We put out a whole lot of information. There were some changes to the Retail Commercial Lease Act which came into play on the 1st of July. That's the Retail Commercial Act Leasing Guide, which sits on our website, which is a bit of a hopefully a good guide to people, and mainly tenants, on the do's and don'ts of the lease and things that they need to be aware of. Michelle's question related to these changes, and it was an issue. One of the changes was that previously a bond would be up to 4 weeks rent, and that was the maximum amount, and that bond had to be lodged with our office, and we hold that in trust. Now, under the changes that went through, the bond can be increased, or the relevant section has increased that bond to up to 3 months rent. And the question that Michelle had was, can a landlord request an increase in the bond? And she's also got an example, top up a bank guarantee now under an existing lease. Bank guarantee, I won't give advice on, that's a separate issue. In relation to increasing a bond, there is a specific part in the Act which does allow that to occur, Part 419(2), for those that might want to come back to the video, which there's a process there which does allow the bond to be increased, and I won't bore you with the detail, but it is one of the changes that is covered off in the Act.
Brilliant.
And if there's a query, come to our office and we'll point you in the right direction.
The next question was from Stefan, Thrifty Link Hardware. Stefan, are you there online? No, I don't think we have Stefan. Maybe again, Stefan, when you go back and have a look at this recording, I encourage you to get in touch with John's office.
I've had a look at Stefan's query, and it relates to the provision of a product and it being damaged along the way before he got it. And there seems to be a bit of argument over who's responsible, and now some people aren't communicating. This follows a bit of a similar line to a number we deal with. Please contact us, Stefan, sasbc@sa.gov.au, or you can lodge a dispute online on our website, and one of my staff will be in contact and we'll start the process of seeing if we can resolve it.
Can I just ask on that point, John? Obviously, tourism businesses purchase a lot of products and services from third parties. Is this an issue that you see in terms of faulty products or services that the industry sometimes has to go through this process of challenging these issues?
Often it is. Sometimes we find, depending on the companies involved, that they'll jump on it quickly and fix it. I think there's an area, and I certainly raised it with my national counterparts, in terms of couriers and transporting of goods, where the response to us is often, oh, well, they didn't insure it, too bad. I suppose I have a very different view to that, and it goes something like this. You had one job, to pick that product up from that location and deliver it to the other location with due care, and you haven't done that. Now, to say that you then need insurance, I just find problematic is probably what I'll use. I could use a few others. Needless to say, we're starting to ramp up, myself, my national counterparts, on that issue, because you know, when you're running a business, you have certain responsibilities to deliver a product or goods or services. You would well know in your industry, and you know, particularly you know, the hospitality industry, where someone doesn't like something, they can go online, and I see all the efforts that good operators go to try and resolve those disputes. So there are issues, and we're happy to deal with those. It's just I'm disappointed at times with the response of some of these organisations. I do have legal powers, and occasionally I do exercise them, and that usually gets a response, and we can start negotiating an outcome.
Thanks, John. Lisa from Chocolate Art and Coffee. Again, I'm not sure if you're there. You submitted a question. I'll give you a moment to come off mute. Otherwise, John will be able to speak to your question. This is a late one that came in. I'm not sure if you saw it, John. It's about local communities, and obviously quite often staff have strong connections to different people in the community, and it's about business reputation. I'm not quite sure if this is an area that your office gets involved in, John, but maybe are you able to speak to that?
Yeah, it's. I'll read the question out just to put it in context. In a small community where a staff may do wrong by the business or sales income of business, but a large percent of the customers have a personal or family connection to the staff. Customers believe gossip, misinformation spread for staff's personal gain, and it has crippled our business before had to rebuild it. These are very difficult issues, particularly in small communities where sometimes the truth gets lost along the way. Look, I think, like a lot of our business, sometimes it's about getting the people together to see if it can be resolved, and that might require, you know, the help of someone skilled in that area in terms of mediation. That's what we do. If I bring a mediator in, and I've got 12 of them at the moment, we've actually got a mediation happening as I speak. Sometimes it's just about getting the parties together to try and map a path forward and put the past in the past. Sometimes it's not possible, and you just have to move on and try and project your business in the way that's upstanding. So they're not easy, but if it's business to business, or indeed state government or local government, we can help. But as I say, sometimes it's just a matter of talking together, and you might need to find the right person who can broker that discussion.
Thanks, John. I'll now open it up to the floor in the 10 minutes that we have left. please come off mute and ask your question, and hopefully we don't get people talking over each other.
John, hello. I'm a small business owner that provides school camp packages around South Australia, and our market is obviously schools. During the COVID shutdowns and in the aftermath, we've had a number of school principals contacting us in a very bullying way, saying that despite the fact that we had provided, done a lot of work leading up to the school camps that were cancelled in the week, and in fact, in some cases, the week before the Education Department ceased, school camps and excursions, that schools have been effectively saying that if we don't, that they don't owe us any money despite the work that we, have done, and that if we don't let them, have their full, sort of refund, or then they will, to quote one principal, they will make our name a pariah amongst all of the in this instance, Catholic schools. So it was, on top of having to deal with, the situation for our business, to encounter that kind of, attitude and that kind of bullying, was something that not just my business, but other people in other business providers in this space, both actually here and interstate, have said that they have encountered the same kinds of attitudes and actual bullying, from principals. So I guess I wondered what kind of avenues you would suggest might be open to us. It's a difficult situation, obviously. I mean, for our business, we've been, weighing up, contract over relationship, and wanting to, sort of, come to a reasonable result, but in many instances, I have concerns about, what will happen going forward, and and what we can do to protect ourselves going forward, from this kind of situation.
Thanks, Julie. I think the outdoor adventure education segment of our industry has been massively impacted during this period. John, what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think it's a complex one. One of the first points is to get back to your contractual terms and what they say in relation to refunds. I have no idea what it is that's said in that, and I'd suspect a whole lot of businesses will be re-looking at their contractual terms in this COVID-19 environment. In terms of the behaviours, it's disappointing that you've been subjected to those sorts of behaviours. I think in this process, I've seen the best and the absolute worst of behaviours of people in this last 3 months. And keeping in mind, a lot of people are under enormous pressure. So that is what it is. If there are specific examples, or there's, I'm not sure how the Catholic schools are structured, whether, if it's related to that, or if it's public school, well, then we've got state government and we can assist in that area. But it may be, it might be one that we can talk to the peak body about, and how we deal with this. Whether it can resolve that particular issue, I'm not sure. But certainly, if you feel there is a particular case you want to pursue, you could lodge that with us. If there's a particular school, and we can engage. In terms of the adventure area, look, one of the issues that's come to my attention is the difficulty people are having getting public liability insurance, or the insurance has increased through the roof. And that was raised with me by a couple of businesses on KI just about 3 weeks ago. And I've canvassed my interstate colleagues, and they're coming up with similar stories. So we will be talking about that next week and looking at a combined approach with the Small Business Family Enterprise Ombudsman into the insurance industry to deep dive, I think, into some of these areas, because if you can't get public liability insurance, or it increases threefold, then your business is probably not viable, and that's problematic. We've got some market failure there, so we're trying to flush that one to the surface. But in relation to the dispute and the behaviours, look, you know, if it's one particular issue, we can deal with that. If it's broader, we might need to look at whether there's an association, or if it's the government. I'm more than happy. I know the CE of Education well, and if there's a problem, generally we'll try and fix it.
Thanks, John. Maybe just one more question, and I see Cindy, you've come off mute. I'll give you the first opportunity.
Thanks for that, Sean. Cindy from Segway Sensation SA. We've had our council at our Riverbank location has just added a new revenue to our Riverbank location land agreements. So we've been there nearly 4 years, and 3.5 years. Now they've added a, they would like us to pay another, I guess, agreement for the parking of our ute and our trailer where we set up our, in our location. And this is considerably a large amount, $2,745 plus GST, on top of what we're already experiencing now. And we're not even really back at Riverbank now. We're, you know, a few issues obviously with JobKeeper, like every other business. So we have 3 locations we've only been able to open 2. I have spoken to them. You know, I just think that coming out of COVID to add an extra cost onto something that we've never had before was pretty low, to be quite honest, when we've got other councils bending over backwards to help us sort of get through this. So I just wondered if there a way, we are in the process at the moment of just replying. I did ring and speak to someone, and she basically said, well, you can, I guess, send us a letter and tell us of your hardship, which you would imagine that they would already know. I just wondered what's the best way for me to handle this.
Look, thanks for that question. I think what you're doing is fine. Respond to the council in terms of why you can't pay. I think it's pretty obvious. If you've got your,
You think so?
I don't think anyone's queuing up down the riverbank for segways, unfortunately, at the moment. But and see how you go. If you are unsuccessful there, contact me, and I'll have a chat to the council and see if we can resolve it that way.
That would be really helpful. Thank you.
The City of Adelaide has been a very strong supporter of our Small Business Friendly Council program. You know, occasionally some things go down different paths, and we'll try and get it back on a path.
Yeah.
But at the moment,
They've done a few things. They've introduced like a I don't know, kiddies play area that's right in where we would do our training. It's like hopscotch, snakes and ladders and things like that. So they've compromised our area by giving us order of what we normally would have anyway. Then they've lumped this on the top. I also wanted to ask about insurance. Like, who's responsible for the insurance if the kids are playing in a hopscotch area where we would normally do our training and where trucks are coming in to do deliveries to the restaurant that's behind the cafe? It just seems, am I able to ask the question of their insurance and if they're covered, who covers the liability? There also is a fair way, where all the bikes and the runners go running across the weir. It seems to me to be quite, small location for them to be trying to do so much in there, apart from adding extra revenue to us for our vehicles. So.
Sure. On insurance, by all means, ask the question. I think it's absolutely critical that you do. You don't want to be in a situation where you've got insurance companies at 30 paces and you're caught in the middle of it. So ask that question. I'd also, in terms of your own insurance, presumably you might use a broker or your insurance company. I'd be talking to them, which may have a downside. They may go, oh, oops, we're going to increase the risk. But a broker is usually a good place to start because they can make inquiries without necessarily naming names. So, unfortunately that's difficult. But certainly I'd be asking the council if you see a greater risk there. I think with respect to those named Murphy's Law often comes into play, and it usually comes back and hits the person who can least afford it. And that's, at the moment, I think, a lot of your members.
Yeah. No, thanks, John. Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of today's session. Thanks so much, John, for coming in. It's very informative, and it's great to know that you and your role exists, and obviously provides a great level of support for small business across this state. Without it, we would be in a much worse place. Today's session's been recorded. We will send that out, as I previously mentioned. Next week, we'll be doing a session on TIC SA advocacy and our policy development. Hopefully most of you would have seen that we've developed a strong policy position around JobKeeper that we went out with late yesterday. We're keen to get industry and member feedback on future advocacy items, and so we'll be having a workshop on that next week. Thanks again all for taking the time. Again, please, I encourage you to contact John's office. The website is the best place to do that. It's very easy to navigate, and it's very easy to quickly log your interest, and then a staff member will get back to you very quickly in terms of helping you through the particular issue that you're confronting. So enjoy the day, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thanks again.
Thank you.